Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Kula on the island of Maui here in Hawaii in the middle of the Pacific on planet Earth, stating the obvious where we are in context from my heart to yours, human heart to human heart, mind to mind, cohabitating, if you will, in this sacred cauldron of love and hate. I dare state the obvious, but when I speak about the beauty of life, it must always be integrated with the challenges that we face every minute, every hour, if not ourselves, our fellow sisters and brothers, the non-human world as well, the environment, the planet itself, the deep interrelatedness of multiple ecosystems, the collective intelligence wrapping us together in a oneness of complexity. There are obvious dualities, and today I'd like to enter those dualities with a very intimate term that I do my best, I want to say live with, but to feel and embody. The word embodied wisdom, embodied kindness, embodied compassion, meaning that I have created a deep, or I should say a dignified interiority with the values and principles and the qualities of heart and consciousness that I associate personally with the Dhamma. Today the word Sanvega, S-A-N-V-E-G-A. Many of you know the word. Those of you who do not know the word, it could be termed Dhamma, fire, passion, spiritual urgency, verve, tenacity. You must include ethical courage, mindful discernment, radicalization of presence, not intensity alone. There can be shared flow, reciprocal likeness, deep shared intimacies, romantic moments, eroticism, of course, to state the intimacies of fire and passion. But here I'm speaking to a very special state of consciousness. Something has been awakened in us, in you, in me. And there's a sense of high priority with regard to things that can no longer be postponed. Are you with me on that? Things, write them down in your heart journal, on your own cognitive iPad mind. What are the things in my life, in your life, that are beckoning, craving recognition, voices, feelings, emotions? I'm not saying just things that give us pleasure, but things deeper than that, that give us this sense of soul satisfaction, that if in the most extreme expression, if we lived a life and nothing else occurred except that we gave life to the fidelity of that Sanvega, and we lived in truthdom with the expression of it through thought, experience, and action, even though we did not release into the actualization of the goal, the process gave us the stealth and the stamina to know our lives were well lived. Sanvega, it's a state of consciousness, an S-O-M, S-O-C, a state of mind. Okay. Welcome today. Thank you for joining my life. Thank you for being a part of this. Just a brief announcement. I'll get back into the rant. We have a global virtual gathering here in my temple of love, bequeathed to me by the beloved owners of this sacred palace on the side of this radical mountain volcano here in the middle of the Pacific, 7 miles deep. Wow. We will gather, a small group of us, very small, deeply respectful, of the ordinances of Maui County so that COVID is kept out, social distancing, masks, those few people that are coming, you know all that. However, the focus now is turning to you, digital Sangha worldwide. A very rare outing for me, the first time in nearly 2 years, where I'm going to lay down in the best possible fashion the most important Dhammas and considerations and attitudes and stories and practices and techniques condensed into 6 2-hour periods of time from 10 to 12 and 1 to 3 on Friday, July 2nd, the same on July 3rd, Saturday, and the July 4th, 10 to 2, 1 to 3. May I invite you to invite friends to come together, commune. You can stay as long as you want. I encourage you to commit to sections. There's something in that reciprocity that gives us hope and meaning and support. So please invite your friends and family and your tribe, wherever they may be, on social media, in real time, in real life. And may I invite you, if you've been connected to me over the years, the decades, since I've been walking and traveling this planet, may I invite you to take the time, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, for as much time as you can, to join me and others around the world to gather and dive into the most important principles and values and considerations at this very provocative moment in human history. Many of you are aware, I woke up this morning hyper aware of this radical heat wave, this heat dome over British Columbia and Canada, perhaps many other places in the world as well, where the temperatures are rising to 110, 15, 116 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's something like 46 or 47 centigrade. Breaking record temperatures going way, way back. Heat, burning, pause. I was thinking prior to walking here into the temple of a famous image used in the Tipitaka, or the classical Buddhist texts, where the Buddha was said to have said, talking to people, that life is very symbolic of children in a house that's burning. And playing and riffing on that image, enamored in their various ways with the ornaments and the symbols, the desires, the behaviors, the events, the reactions, the toys, the trinkets, the cars, the homes, the buildings, even the most erotic sense of orgasmic pleasure, as well as heightened states of aesthetic joy, were in that house. Most people today, even the children, know that our earth, in a way, not just our own interiority encased within a biological epidermis, driven by brain and organs and blood, and there we find our own consciousness, the children within our own consciousness, the identities that we have. But we're encased on a planet, a finite orb spinning through eternity. Wow, 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 wow. And the Dhamma is someone, people, you, me, who have looked into the framework, the conditions, the ways in which reality deeply realizes and evolves itself. The Dhammas that of unrecognized induce self-generated conflict, and the Dhammas that, when realized and actualized, release one into the radiance of the opposite of suffering or conflict. unconditional love, effortful compassion, the joy of generosity, delighting in the service to other. Here we are in this house on fire. I'm thinking, wow, I've been studying climate change and the economic and the environmental collapse that scientists and environmentalists and awake people who've connected the dots tell us clearly that we are in the sixth great human extinction, and with it we'll take out millions upon millions of non-human species. The planet will survive as it's survived the previous 5 and perhaps the next 50. But the preservation of human civilization, the natural world, the animal world, the fish world, I'm going to leave that debate and those particular desire systems to those who play so skillfully in that realm, and in my own humble way invite you to invite me to watch the ways in which we live within our own house that's burning on a planet that is overheating and burning through our own behaviors. And as the Buddha summoned 2,650 years ago, human life by and large are like children enamored with the trinkets, the ornaments, the behaviors, the toys, the preoccupations found within the narratives of their own respective cultures, politics, conditioning, interwoven into the collective conditioning of the human species over many, many hundreds of thousands of years, perhaps millions of years. And here we sit, walk, talk, emote, in present time collective reality in June of 2021, and places on our planet are so acutely overheating that it is making international news, and those who have voices of conscience are speaking up. We are already approaching the cliff of no return. Some are saying that we're over the cliff of no return. The great environmental philosopher of Vancouver, British Columbia, where this heat dome is taking place most acutely on planet Earth, said something like 15 years ago in his ongoing decades of research into the deep interconnectedness of human unconscious behavior, the fetishisms of consumerism, fossil fuels, electrification, all the ways in which you and I live in denied or in semi-awake hypocrisy. Our lifestyles are killing life, including us non-human, the environment, and potentially the future of life as we know it. And he said, we're like children in a car, headlong into the brick wall of extinction, and we're arguing over where to sit, what should be played on the radio, who meditates the best, who's got the most followers, who's got the most unique views, who makes what, who's most popular, what we look like, what we don't look like that we would like to look like, where we're going, what we've done, all very, very important if we're children in the house that's burning. And here we sit today, and I ask myself with this word Sanvega, beat after beat of this temporal heart, beat after beat, in-breath, out-breath. I meditated right here this morning and sat and felt and listened and cried and went in more intimately to the edges and the feeling and the confluence of my own mind with my own being, with my own body, into my own thoughts, into my own heartbeat. In-breath, neither wish to live. Out-breath, nor fear dying. But right there at the confluence of in and out-breath, here we sit. And what's motivating me today, and how can I increase the Sanvega? Time is short. I don't really trust the future, except that we're in what appears to be a semi-slow motion collapse. The internet goes down, Wi-Fi is off, lights go off, no gas, no heat. You can't drive. You can no longer fly. The pandemic is one dimension. Imagine if electrification were to stop, even temporarily for a week. It's said by many, many people that if the electricity went down in the North American continent, that within 1 year, 90% of human life would die. So utterly dependent on what we're doing right now, what I'm doing right now, through electricity, through consumerism, through travel. All the ways in which we've been lied to about renewables. Read Derek Jensen's new book with his illustrious colleagues, Bright Green Lies. I wrote about it for nearly a year in my book that's just been released, which I'm blessed to say, based upon the good fortune of a gentleman in my life who was willing to film this book, Extinction X-rated. It was always meant to be visual. I am so thrilled to dive into this and deliver it to the world over the next couple of weeks. It's a gift that increases my own sense of fire. Right there is the key word for me right now, the fire in your soul. I don't mean to be cliched, that's what you interpret, but I don't want to judge you for any interpretation. But I don't know what other words to use except burning for what? May I invite you? Make good on the promise of what your heart and ear hears right now, and let it go down deep into the finest recesses of your own soul. What I mean by soul is the epicenter of conscience, where self-esteem originates, where your sense of personal dignity could not be compromised unless you denied its truth. Soul recognition, respect. Sanvega is what happens. It's the realization from the authentication of dignity felt, embodied with courage, determination, mindful intelligence, and of course, artistry, aesthetics, calm, poise, forthright, determined behaviors. I invite you, what are you not doing that you would really like to do or do more of? What are you doing that you would like to release yourself from doing? What are the things that you may be doing that you would no longer need to be doing? Who are the people in your life that no longer serve you in the way in which you need to serve yourself? It's not about boundaries, it's about quality. Sometimes you have to dance alone in order to find the partner who moves in aesthetics rhythms that are very connected to the evolution, the rebirthing of life. We're not just one being, right? Rebirthing, 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 rebirthing. Therefore, we have to reinvent identity with mindfulness and the courage to live in the actualization of the sculpting of new forms of consciousness. Go there. Why wait is the angel of Sanvega. The people in British Columbia, it's hot. They're looking for the air conditioner outside. Some who know how to cool their interior can withstand the heat of the sun. At the same time, without that blessed mother sun, 96 million miles away, no light. No growth, no vegetables. Wow. The juxtaposition of fire, we can't vilify it. We can't vilify heat, but we have to learn how to moderate external behaviors and internal relationships to consciousness that increase passions to take into account what's most important, and meanwhile adjust consciousness based upon cooling behaviors that release us from behaviors that burn. Pause. You could go anywhere with this talk. Another famous discourse of the Buddha, attributed to the Buddha. I like to really say attributed to the Buddha, because these books are, they've been written down, and we all know how easy it is to mistake something that we consider to be true, which in fact was told to us differently the way that we repeat it. So we repeat truths that become lies, and who knows how far back these books can be authenticated. A verbal tradition for nearly 300 to 400 years, it said, from the time of the Buddha, before they were written down on these palm scripts. I want to be very, very careful about attributing things to something that I have no relationship to except in myself. How to actualize those words off the page and to feel more dramatically, dynamically into the wisdom of embodied Sanvega. The fire sermon. Vulture's Peak, Bihar state, not far from Buddha Gaya, where the Buddha was said to have been enlightened. Here he is meeting with a group of nuns and monks, different than the word nuns and monks, individuals who just got so fed up with the cultural conditioning and all the artifice and the ornaments and the behaviors of politics and war, and they sought refuge among themselves and lived in caves, on riverbanks, in forests, on mountainsides, and eventually over time developed humble dwellings in these ancient forests in northern India. The Sangha was formed. One discourse in the earliest iteration of the teachings of the Buddha. The fire sermon. O nuns and monks, here I am repeating this. The eye is on fire with greed, anger, and delusion. The ear is on fire with greed, anger, and delusion. It's not the object. It's the relationship to the phenomena at the sense door. States of mind determine how we feel about ourselves and each other and the world. Burning in the house like children enamored with our toys. The house is really our own body. Yes, we have a context called the earth that's also overheating. Children and adults on a planet that's overheating. Who could have ever predicted the Buddha would have seen that or known that 2,600 and some years back? But it's really about the body. We're encased in a biological entanglement and a neurology that connects us to identity, to thoughts, the formation of values and principles and judgments. The navigating system that I use to understand identity and relationship to the formation of principles and values, what determine reciprocal intimacy, shared flow, collective intelligence, individual intelligence, freedom and conflict, is the word Dhamma. But part of that Dhamma can be very complacent. I've noticed in my life that I become somewhat enamored in the illusions of lust and play and joy and cars and planes and numbers and likes and swipes and hopes and dreams and just the desire to basically wake up in the morning to do what I've done previous mornings, to drink my coffee, to do my yoga, which are all humanly natural. But now we're on the precipice of the sixth mass extinction, where some say that you cannot reverse the momentum of the planetary automobile going into the wall of self-annihilation. Radical imaging. Some of us in the car on the planet not just are woke, are awakening, but we are burning. Are you burning? I'm not saying like radically sweating types of burning, but you know what you want. You know where to go inside of your heart to authenticate it. You may not have it reciprocated in the way that you feel right now, Alan. Yes, 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 there's remarkable players and people and goddesses and gods in your world. But ultimately, you go to bed at night, you wake up in the morning. Right now, you've got to understand, Sanvega, what is most important to you in your life today. And I ask myself, how well will I live today? And what will I do with how well I live today? What are the things that I must do to my own inner being that can't wait? Sanvega. The Buddha also, when asked, according to the Tipitaka, "Sir, you speak of a state of mind called the unconditioned. Nibbana, you call it. You call it the ultimate extinction. In fact, the book that I wrote, Extinction X-Rated, it's really about Nibbana. And the XX there is the intensity of the imagery. Wait till you see it on film. The intensity of the cinematic nature of the writing to bring forth what I call a literary mandala. But it's the fire that I'm feeling, I don't know about you, where it's the Nick Cave line, I just can't shake this feeling of Sanvega right now. And it's a heightened stillness, passion, unresolvable aesthetic with my tastes that is not easily met. And I don't want it to be easily met because I want to meet it myself in the most, I want to say, biblical way. I want to ride the light of ascension in rebirthing. And the Buddha used the word Nibbana. I rarely in the past ever used this concept. It was sort of a taboo. But more recent years, and especially the more recent months, the Buddha likened it to the fire that has gone out. The fire of becoming, the fire of self-doubt, the fire of shame, the fire of righteousness, the fire of war, the fire of greed, the fire of rape, the fire of violence, the fire of apathy, the fire of restlessness, the fire of delusion, the fire of evil, the fire of greed, the fire of lobha, dosa, and moha. It's said that he said. The ultimate sense of conditions that give rise to those fires, as he spoke about in the fire sermon, and the analogy of the children in a house burning. Nibbana was the absence, the absolute absence in that moment, in that vicinity of time, called a minute or an hour or a day. Or if it's so realized, the substratum is completely removed of it. It is such an elegant concept to think of the absence of fire, the absence of fear, the absence of greed, the absence of delusion. There is a way to stop the car from hitting the wall of annihilation. There's a way to escape the house that's burning. There's a way to turn down the fire and remove the fuel, the conditions in that fire sermon. There's a way to release ourselves in the moment from burning with fear, greed, and delusion. And it's called, in classical Buddhist psychological terms, Sanvega. You cannot wait. You ever felt that way when you've been so madly, passionately, erotically, dhammically, spiritually awakened to your own lover, inside, and her, if you're hetero, or whatever it may be, your sexual, erotic, sapio, trans, tantric, intelligent pleasure, you just can't wait. There's a feeling inside. That, to me, I just love those men and women. And it's not just about intensity, but radical conviction in principles, in values, in present time, present elegant rapport with the mutual intimacy of a shared flow, exploring self-knowledge with shared knowledge and taking the Ubuntu higher into a bodhisattvic rave of love and kindness and compassion. And you are playing right there in the field of Sanvega being realized, in the heartful shared space of an awakening together. That radiance is called Nibbana. It's a momentary field of the release from fear, buoyancy, spontaneity, trust in the ethical rootedness of your own sense of identity. There's nothing more powerful that I can see in my life than to wake up and to establish a more meaningful relationship to my own sense of worth. Put your back upright, as my dad would often say in Upandita in the monastery, but not so tense that it's militant, but walk upright. Stand with a poised sense of dignity rooted in the value of your Sanvega, making good on the promise of actualizing the most beautiful states of mind in every given second hour of your life. That was the life of the bhikkhuni, the nun, the bhikkhu, the monk, the yogi, the meditator, the Dhamma savant, those who are burning with Dharma passion, spiritual urgency, Sanvega. May I invite you, as we come to the end of this talk today, this sharing, write down the ways that you feel, if you're inclined, that you could increase the passions and the fires of your life. What are the priorities? There is no next year to wait. What are you postponing, and where is the real sense of joy in your soul? And go right down into that place of meditation. Not so much to practice or to cultivate mindfulness of thoughts and feelings. That's windshield wiper Dharma. Cool for those who need to be potty trained. But sacred soul access to deeper, more buried or less visible accumulations of energy and visions, putting tangible images within wonderment, making mystery more tangible. What is your music? What is your art? What is your photography? Take it out of the realm of a secretive passion. Drop the commerciality judgment conditioning on it, and realize that art is from inception through consciousness, through form into actualization. Who would we be without literature and art and movies and film and photography and life and sex and clothing? Make our life a meaningful expression of Sanvega. It's often in untapped creativity, stepping out of sync with our own sense of identity. Some people just don't belong in the club of the corporation. They don't belong to the fetish of six-figure income. They don't care about stock options. They don't care about social climbing. They don't care about Instagram influencers. They don't care about posing. They don't care. They don't care. Do you not care so much that you care for what you really care for is really the role or the intelligence of Sanvega? I ask you to invite me, to invite you, to invite your friends. It's not an easy journey to actualize on the vision of your artistry, your passion, your unoptionable GPS of your heart, if you will. Yes, yes, now is the time. Age is never an obstacle. States of mind are. Sanvega sees obstacle and says, I see you. I refuse to participate in your belief systems, your definitions of who I am and what I'm not. I refuse to believe that I cannot do what I set my mind on doing. When I met Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, I'll close here, back in '95 after her release from 6 years of house arrest, along with lots of other political prisoners, we talked a lot about hope, about what she termed as grace under pressure, those individuals who don't resort to violence and self-hatred or the hatred of others, but gracefully endure with ethical, spiritual, mindful courage to integrate complexity into the fire of their Sanvega, right? She said, all it takes is one person in your life to help support you in activating your Sanvega. I don't know exactly the details of this story. Correct me somewhere down the road if you do a search. It's been a long time, but she spoke of an Iranian woman who was married to an Iranian man, very classic, traditional Islamic family, and they had a daughter who was born blind. And the husband wanted a boy, and how affronted, as the story was told to me, that he was given a daughter, and a blind daughter at that. And it said that he said he was quite overt in his disdain for having a daughter and having a blind daughter. He said on a fairly frequent basis, I wish you were dead. Unthinkable. A friend of the family, respecting the cultural norms at that time in Iran, understood the complexity of challenge to these. The mind is burning with greed, anger, and delusion, the fire sermon of the Buddha. This gentleman's mind was burning with the conditioning of anger and fear and orthodoxy. And the family friend consoled the young girl and affirmed her worth. Having someone in your life that affirms your worth, that holds you in such beautiful esteem, right? We long for those intimacies. That's why we like people who like us, but then we start to love those who love us. And what are we loving about what they love about us? Because they hold us in high esteem, and they realize that their completeness becomes more whole by holding space for you to learn from you and with you to become more knowledgeable and grow together in that shared Ubuntu of high esteem, high shared intimacy, flow, growth, evolution of consciousness embodied. But some of us aren't so lucky, right? To have someone that believes in you, who affirms your worth. When I talk about Sanvega, it's one thing. I don't see you, feel you, I know some of you, but are the relationships in your life serving you? Identify the angels and identify the angel of Sanvega in your own soul that place that you know this emotion is the source, the nutrient, the blood, the oxygen of my greatness. I say place so big right now, so high right now, as the challenges to survival of the entire species and the planet, and non-humans too, are on the precipice of a great extinction, of self-annihilation, which is natural to the cosmos. Earths come and go. Galaxies come and go. The house is burning. It's nature, and we are in it, embodied in it, on a planet, a finite planet. An impossible conundrum. A sun that we can't live without. Behaviors that are so natural, to burn fossil fuels. It's so natural. And to make love and to grow. But the fire sermon, the greed, anger, and delusion, the mind, and there we find ourselves in deep radical wonderment, making good on the promise of what will you do with your desire for greatness. May I invite you here towards the end. Tonight, look at the sky. See your own consciousness, if you so choose. And what is the North Star? What is the constellation that you are inspired by the most? See her, see it, see beyond it, see through it, see into your own inner soul, and dream of what it is that you want to be in this month, not in this life, in this month, in this week, in this day, in this hour, in this very moment. Who are you? Who will you be? What will you do with the preciousness of your own full breath? I ask myself, what does greatness mean to me? And this Iranian woman affirmed the worth of this young, blind Iranian girl. What a beautiful, 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 imaginative rapport they shared in a hostile environment. I wish you were dead, daughter. Savage God. Well, Aung San Suu Kyi concluded the story by saying that this blind Iranian girl was the first graduate of Iran University in Tehran. And she learned of this story because the blind graduate wrote a book, a memoir, about the power of her own complex life and the power of affirmation, of esteem, of valued intimacies, the quality of Sanvega that must have cried a million tears growing up in that environment, that young girl. We're all that young girl on some level, some more extreme in the country of Myanmar or in Africa or South America or on our city streets, or maybe you and me at different times. Who knows? We all are on this planet. And there's talk now, great talk, that we are headed into the brick wall of extinction, burning with our own fear, our own greed. What will we do with our Sanvega? How will we affirm our own sense of valued greatness? What will we do, even post-extinction? If there's something that we wanted to leave behind in the existential legacy of life being reformed in evolutional expressions, human, non-human, on this precious planet, there will be life after an extinction. Who knows, 100,000, 1,000,000 years, 5,000,000 years, 50 million years? The plant of life reforms, the rebirthing. In the sediment belt of consciousness, speak to the blind boy and girl born into that context. Live today affirming tomorrow. At the same time, turn up the Sanvega fire. Employ the beauty of Nibbana, the release from fear, and from that, what will you do with the preciousness of the radiance of your own beautiful expression of the gift of life? I do believe that life is a gift, a profoundly complex engagement, and therefore the soul of Sanvega is conscience, dignity, and Dhamma, the employment of mindful intelligence to affirm the most radiant qualities of consciousness, playing in the field of Nibbana, the release from conflict and fear and greed, and keeping high in our own way the light of freedom, because all of us, without the understanding, we're blind to these timeless principles and values. But when we awaken, I see what my life's purpose is. I invite you to invite me to invite your friends. Where is your greatness? And what will you do to further the journey of realizing it today, this week? And may I invite you, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have a rare configuration here in this sacred nature reserve on the edge of eternity for a global virtual gathering. Please join July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 10 to noon, 1 to 3, Hawaii time. And it's offered freely, a gift to the universe, to you, to all beings. And I hope to see you this coming weekend, and God willing, I hope to see you tomorrow again at 9:30 here from this beautiful sacred space. So from my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Have a great day.